Hello my friends, my name is Sive and this is Stories in Sive, and this is my channel. I talk about books. As you can see, today we're doing an unhaul. The Unhaul Before Christmas I have had over the past year of reading just a little bit more clarity around the books that I want to own. Over the year I've actually been setting aside some of these books, so I already do have predetermined stacks that I'm going to talk through today, but I'm also just going to go through my shelves, go through my TBR cart, and bring you along on my process of why I'm unhauling things and basically clearing up some space to go into the new year. I'm very excited to do this, specifically to go through my TBR cart, so let's just get right into it. I'm going to take you over to my bookshelves and we can get going. I'm going to move my TBR cart over here. Okay, here we are. Welcome to my bookshelves. I have my David Bod up on this shelf. We're not unhauling any of that. If you don't know, David Bod is my favorite series of all time. So let's start here. This is my horror and thriller shelf, and then I also have all of my nonfictions right here. And if I'm being honest, the only thing I think I want to unhaul up here is the Get Out of Your Head study guide. I bought this on accident and I didn't actually go through it. I only read Get Out of Your Head. Everything else on here I want to keep. Okay, I'm gonna get low with you. So next is this shelf right here. I'm gonna bring you in closer. Okay, this shelf right here is contemporary romance, and I've got some historical fiction in here. I think the only one I'm going to get rid of my romance is Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors. This book I actually listened to on audio and I never read the physical copy. I didn't really find this to be anything very exceptional. I liked it. Will I reread it? Probably not. Okay, actually on this shelf, tucked right behind that corner, you can't see it, is a YA fantasy book that I probably will not reread, and if I did, I can get the audiobook for free on Libby. I like it because it's a little bookend, because the way this shelf is structured is it has this little sneaky moment behind the little panel there. But this is Fire, Graceling, Realm. I'm a big fan, but I listened to all of them on audiobook, and this is the only book that I own physically, and I don't know why. It's a gorgeous floppy secondhand paperback, but I don't need it. Hi. On the other side now, this shelf is my favorite shelf because it is all of my sci-fi, fantasy, and that's adult and young adult, if you can see. This I don't have any. Let me look. The only one that I'll get rid of is Cruel and Beauty. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling that I read on the plane last summer, and it was good. I gave it 3 stars. I'm not going to reread it. This doesn't truly spark joy on my shelf for me either. So for example, the Warlock Holmes series, I don't know if I'll ever reread these, but they definitely spark joy for me. So that's all I'll get rid of there. This bottom shelf is catch-all, honestly. It's just anything that doesn't fit on the other shelf. From this shelf down here, I'm going to get rid of 2 books. That's going to be The Supernatural Society by Rex Ogle, which is a middle grade that I read later in the summer this year, and I'm not a middle grade fan. I didn't enjoy this. I will give it to someone who probably will. The next book I'm going to get rid of is Echoes and Empires, which is a first book in a new YA fantasy series. This is Morgan Rhodes. I've never read any of her previous stuff, but she's actually written quite a lot of books, and this is a new series. I really enjoyed the concept. The writing was just not for me. This is not the type of YA writing that I like, so I'm not going to continue in the series. I did forget to mention at the beginning of this video, I'm going to be kind of holding on to some of these, the ones that I have read this year, for the end of the year wrap-up video that I will do before actually donating them. So I'm going to be donating some, selling some, and also giving some to my mom. So my mom has a library at a vacation home that my parents allow for a lot of people to use, and she wants the library to have a bunch of different types of books. Okay, so those are all the books that I want to get rid of from my main shelf right here. I'm going to swing you over to this shelf that you sometimes see in the background. This is a gorgeous custom shelf that I was given for my birthday that I have not had the chance to fully let it come into its moment. My husband and I are going to be moving in the upcoming months, so hopefully you will see this shelf fully used and functional in all of its glory. For now, this is what we've got. The books that I'm unhauling from this shelf right here are going to be 2. One that I'm actually giving back to my mom. This is not my copy. She told me to read it after I enjoyed Water for Elephants about 6-7 years ago, and I've never got to it, and I feel bad, so I'm giving it back to her. The other book that I have here is an ARC, and this is a children's book that is actually personalized, but I'm not interested in this book, and I feel that if I read it and DNF it or read it and give it a low rating, it would be unfair to the book. I'm not the target audience for something like this. So I am happy for it to leave my shelves and go on to someone who would appreciate it. Okay, so the other shelves up there are literally so bare, I just picked the stuff that I'm unhauling. So I'll talk through the stack at the end of the video. Now I'm going to take you over to what I'm most excited about, which is my TBR cart. Okay, hi, so TBR cart time. This is kind of already structured a specific way. All of these books on this top shelf are all books that I am excited to read. So this shelf right down here is where it gets a little different because I want to have a small physical TBR. That's the type of reader I want to be. I currently have 22 books on my physical TBR, and I wanted that to be 13. At the beginning of this year, if you didn't watch it, I put out a 2022 resolutions, and one of them was to reduce my physical TBR to 13 books. So right now I have 22, so that means I've got some work to do to unhaul. I just want to look at this more critically to make sure this actually has books that I'm excited to read, because I'll talk through this a little bit, but some of my book taste has changed in the past year. Shadow of the Wind, I really want to read. The Astonishing Color of After is a young adult book, and I've heard that it's actually quite emotional, and one of the main themes is grief and loss, but it's magical realism. And I really have been trying to dabble in magical realism. The story follows a young girl after her mother has passed away, and she is basically convinced that her mom didn't pass away but just turned into a bird. I have not been in the mood to read about a young teenager who's lost her mom. Like, that doesn't sound like something I really want to read right now. My mom is around, she's healthy, she's in my life. But like, do I want to put this in my brain? I don't know. This has been on my shelf for close to 2 years, maybe. I have to think about this. The Foreshadowing is also a maybe of an unhaul. So this book is about it's a fantasy story about a girl who, if she touches people or someone's belongings, she can see many things about that person, and it basically is her trying to deal with the fact that she has this power and try and maintain relationships and connections and make new ones with people. I read a book by this author when I was like first starting to read. Then I saw this book in the secondhand bookstore and I picked it up. But that was before I had changed my book buying habits. I haven't been able to bring myself to get rid of it. And even now it's difficult for me. So this is a maybe as well. Wide Sargasso Sea. I've owned this book for almost 7 years. When I first read Jane Eyre, I was like, I think I was 17. This is a story from the perspective of one of the characters, and this was written like centuries after Jane Eyre was written by Charlotte Bronte. This in concept is something I'm really interested in. It's a relatively short book. Have I prioritized picking it up? Absolutely not. I even reread Jane Eyre at the beginning of this year and still didn't pick this up after I reread it. Oh god, I don't know. This is so difficult. Can I have the third maybe? The Twisted Tree is definitely something that I'm really interested in, and I'm sorry, I'm incorrect. This book is about a girl who can see the future, yes, but this is the book about the girl who has a power. If she touches someone's belongings or clothes or something, she knows about them. So I apologize. But The Twisted Tree is a book I actually started. I got 50 pages into it and was really enjoying it, and then I put it down and picked up something else, and I feel like it could be something that is really up my alley. It's gothic, it's infused with mythology. I believe it's Norwegian mythology. Yes, Norwegian. Okay, so, but also the tagline, this is the tagline, and this has always got me. Okay. When the fog rises, run for home, my child. Dead men rise with the mist. And it's just so like, ooh, eerie and creepy, and I haven't heard too many people talk about this book, so I'm gonna keep this one This, I think, is gonna be on my TBR stuff. Okay, here we go. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna unhaul this one. This is The Witches of East End, and I purchased this secondhand when I was getting into reading for the first time. I wanted to read fantasy, I wanted to read books about witches, and so I picked this up. It follows 3 different sisters. It's set in modern times, but I do believe that this story follows these 3 women as they're trying to basically keep their powers hidden from the world. I'm gonna get rid of this because I've had it on my TBR. I've put it on 2 separate Halloween TBRs and have never picked it up. It's just not pulling me in when it counts. And though I know that if I actually gave this a chance, I would really enjoy it, I know that I can purchase this book another time, but I don't see myself reading this anytime soon. Okay, next we have Queenie by Candace Carty-Williams. This book features an unlikable main character, someone who makes some questionable decisions. This says, Queenie Jenkins, journalist, catastrophist, expressive, aggressive, dramatic, loved, lonely, and relatable. Her boyfriend has asked her to leave their apartment. Her boss doesn't seem to see her. Her Jamaican British family doesn't seem to hear her. Her best friends try to help her. The series of men she meets online treat her hideously, and yet she doesn't stop seeing them. But what makes this breathtaking debut novel so fresh is that this is a spiral mostly of Queenie's own making. The world isn't just happening to her, doing her wrong. Instead, as Queenie careens from one questionable decision to another, she finds herself wondering, as we all do these days, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Who do you want to be? This is a debut, like I said, it's humorous and it's meant to be kind of thought-provoking, so I do want to give this a try. I picked this up at a library sale. This just sounds really interesting. I've always wanted to read a book that is explicitly offering and advertised as an unlikable main character. I've read books with unlikable characters, obviously, but I've never read one that is so in your face about, hey, this is where your expectations should be for this character. So I'm excited to get to this. I definitely want to keep this on my TBR. Okay, I'm gonna slide my maybes over here, and then I'm actually going to talk you through these books right here, because I am gonna unhaul these 4. Nevernight, J. Kristoff. I picked this up when I was trying to get into some fantasy and pick up some new series. I've heard not great things about this author and kind of what he does, and I think he's problematic or something. But ultimately I found out that this book is about a 16-year-old assassin, and she basically is in a school and he writes a young girl in a questionable manner. And apparently the writing is also very flowery and overly dramatic, and that's not something that appeals to me. So writing style, plot-wise and author-wise, not appealing to me anymore. So this is gonna go. Fall Back Down When I Die. This is a book by Jo Wilkins that my mother purchased for me, and I'd never heard of this, and I think she got this for me because it was meant to be a very heartfelt, sad book. She comped it to A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Again, I'm not in the mood right now to be reading books that will purposely break my heart. If the purpose is to get me to cry, I'm probably not in the mood for that right now, but I'm happy to pass it along to someone who is. Next is These Impossible Things. I believe that this is a contemporary literary story, and it follows 3 different friends. It has a lot to do with love, faith, sex, and it's basically just friends navigating life. This is not something that I'm gravitating towards right now. It is a new release, and I'd like to maybe take a look at some of the reviews that start coming in the next couple of months before deciding to pick this up. I was given this arc, and I think that I will give it to my mom, have her hold it, put it in her library, and if I ever feel the need to pick it back up, I can. Okay, next is Half the Sky. It's a nonfiction, and it's about sex trafficking, and it is, well, I think it's about more than that. I believe these authors are just telling the stories of women around the world who have an experience with sex trafficking, and it says, through these stories, Kristoff and Wu Dun help us see that the key to economic progress lies in unleashing women's potential. They make clear how so many people have helped to do just that, and how we can each do our part. Throughout much of the world, the greatest unexploited economic resource is the female half of the population. Countries such as China have prospered precisely because they emancipated women and brought them into a formal economy. Unleashing that process globally is not only the right thing to do, but it's the best strategy for fighting poverty. This is my mom's copy. I'm going to be unhauling it and giving it back to her. I do know that this is a book that I want to read at some point in my life. I think that this is going to be a very important read for me. Do not have the emotional capacity right now, and I've actually had this on my TBR for a year, and it's quite intimidating and scary to me because my mom did tell me specifically, hey, this is a tough book. For that reason, I'm unhauling it today, but I know that I will read this before I die. Okay, let's count because I want to be at 13, right? I have 16, so I have another book sitting over there that I'm currently reading at the moment that I know I will finish, so that will make it 15, and I'm hoping to finish Shore Fall before the end of the year. So now that's 14. I don't know. I feel like this is good because I feel that it's safe that I will actually read at least one more book off of this list before the end of the year, including Shorefall and my other book up there. I do think that's doable. I'm filming this around halfway through December at the moment. So those are the books that will stay on my TBR. Okay, so I have lastly one large stack of, like I said, predetermined books that I'm ready to get rid of. So I'm gonna go quick. First, I have 3 books from my mom. I have either tried to start these or I'm just not ready to pick them up yet. Sula by Toni Morrison, I know I'm really excited to read, but I'm just not ready to pick it up yet. It's too soon after The Bluest Eye, so I'm gonna be giving my mom her copies back. Next is Accidental Happiness. My brother got me this for my birthday a couple years ago, and I'm just not interested in reading it. I haven't picked it up, and I'm ready to unhaul. Same goes for 1000 Gifts. This book was given to me a couple years ago, and it is a nonfiction. It's a Christian book about faith and about your spiritual gifts. I'm just not interested, and I haven't picked this up, so I am unhauling. Next is The Glass Forest. I read this thriller about 2 years ago. I liked it. It was very good. It's set in the 60s. It's really interesting. I liked the twist at the end, but I'm not going to reread it, and I'm ready to unhaul. These are 2 books that I got for an Indian read-along that was supposed to happen maybe like 2 years ago, and it just never got scheduled. So these books have been sitting on my shelves and I haven't gravitated towards them. The guide is about a tour guide who gets into a lot of shenanigans, and The Last Song of Dusk, I believe, is about a newly married couple, and it's some sort of contemporary romance with a theme of grief. I'm just not interested in picking these up, so I'm ready to unhaul. Next is The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates. This is a book that I read at the beginning of the year. It's a magical realism, but it does follow, it's I think historical fiction, and it follows a young man during the time of the Underground Railroad and trying to get people out of slavery, but with that magical realism twist. Unfortunately, I did not enjoy the writing in this book, and I am ready to unhaul this. I actually read it via audiobook, which is free from my library, so I'm gonna get rid of this. Next is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, and I'm ready to get rid of this. I read this also on audiobook, free from my library. I had a lot of joy having this on my shelves, but it just doesn't spark it anymore. I did give this book around 3 stars, so I did enjoy it. It just wasn't like an all-time favorite for me, and I'm ready to get rid of the copy. Next is Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, and I'm ready to get rid of this book. I was given it with someone who was trying to unhaul it from their own personal collection, and I've never gravitated towards it. I've heard mixed reviews, and I know that I can get this audiobook for free from my library, so I don't need this copy. Next is The Marvelers by Danielle Clayton, and this one sucks for me because I picked this up and read about 150 pages before I realized this is not for me, but it really could be for you. This is an amazing middle grade about a young girl who goes into a magical institution, a new school, and she is adopted into all of these different magical friend groups. She goes to class and studies, and then there's this underlying mystery plot. I did DNF once I realized this wasn't for me. I don't feel that it is very fair for me to give a low rating to a book that I'm not the target audience. This next little stack might be a little controversial for all the OG booktube girlies, but this is The Air Chronicles by Cindy Williams Chima, and I'm ready to unhaul this. I read the first 2 books, and I think I need different writing and more depth in characters in my YA fantasy for it to really hook me. I did not enjoy the Wizard Air particularly. The Warrior Air was okay, I gave it 3 stars. The Wizard Air was bad. Ingo, I'm sad about this. I think my the era where I could have enjoyed YA mermaid stuff is past. Like, if I had read this, I think when I was maybe 12, I think I could have really enjoyed this, but I recently read another Little Mermaid retelling, and I hated it, and I don't want to hate read this book, and I think I'm going to get rid of it. We All Looked Up by Tommy Wallach. I read this earlier this year. It's a sci-fi-ish YA story about a group of kids who their town finds out that a meteor is going to hit in 6 months, and it follows them through the 6 months, and they basically reinvent themselves. Oh, I did not like this book. Characters were bad, plot was bad. I did not like the ending. I hate talking negatively about books, but yeah, this wasn't for me. I'm gonna unhaul it. Okay, home stretch. Last 2 books. The first one is The Merciless by Danielle Vega. This is a woman. This is a YA horror book about possession, and it gave me the big ick. I couldn't handle it, but for you horror girlies out there, this might be a good pick for you. It's definitely very scary and gross. Lastly, I have The Physic Book of Deliverance, Dane by Catherine Howe. I am unhauling this as well. This is a historical fiction fantasy book about a young woman who discovers that she might be of witchy ancestry, and it does follow 2 separate timelines, one relatively modern in the 1990s, I believe, and then one in 1680 in Salem, Massachusetts. So yes, we're talking the Salem witch trials. Unfortunately, this did not hit for me, but I do think that if you are into historical fiction more than I am, you could really enjoy this book. Okay, friends, so that is it. Those are all the books that I'm unhauling. Let me count them. 5, 13. 13 plus 19 is 32. So 32 books. Like I said, I am going to hold on to these for another 2 weeks or so towards the end of the year when I make my end of the year book wrap-up video. I didn't read all of these this past year, but a lot of them I did, so I think I'll keep them and hold on to them until then. I'm also really pleased that I got my physical TBR down to 16 books, so that does mean I have a chance to get to my 13 before the end of the year. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know some books that you're unhauling this year. Do you agree with any of my negative reviews of books? Is there any that you would advise me to hold on to and maybe give a try? Please let me know down in the comments, and if you like other bookish content like this, feel free to subscribe. I would really love to have you, and other than that, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!